Welcome to Common Off the Shelf, a podcast for the modern Contra and preppers. We discuss items, books, and topics from a common man's perspective, and our opinions are our own. Do not take any of these as hard facts, only as our interpretation and understanding in a flawed world of amazing product, price gouging, and cheap crap. Your results may vary, and your needs may differ depending on where you live and what you know. So don't take this as a blanket endorsement for all people in every situation. Just like camouflage, your abilities and needs will vary. This is a conversation about hypotheticals and fiction with these items, and never is an endorsement of the owner, author, or any actions. Lastly, we are just common men and not experts in the fields. If we get it wrong, great, tell us. If there is something better, let us know. I can't believe I had to say this. Some of you window lickers made this necessary. Good evening, everybody, or good afternoon, whatever time you're listening to this. This is going to be a short primer on go bags, kits for cars, stuff like that. To reference exactly what we're talking about, Wisco Mando posted a question: how far do you live away from your work site? And kind of where he was involving in the idea of what do you bring with you? Do you bring anything with you in case of emergencies? And I love this topic, and this is probably slightly less divisive than DEI and the medical podcast we did last week. In so being that most of your primary needs and wishes are going to be there, but everybody has a different idea. If you listen to A American's books by Chris Weatherman, he had his pack that he talked about, and he has published online what he had in there. Traveling home in a theoretical EMP versus your everyday kit versus small medical kits. To be fair, I like what we talked about last week about just what kind of first aid kit you might want in your car. With MechMedic, he's like, hey, I have a tourniquet, I have this, and this, and I can't remember right off the top of my head. But I thought it would be a great primer. I had a little time with Mando, and I wanted to actually use it to talk with you guys about this. And hopefully you get on X and give us some feedback. We'll get some more people in. We'll have more conversations about it, because I don't think this is a set in stone, especially regionally and everything else. So, Mando, say hello and tell us what you think.
Evening, folks. It's definitely not set in stone. I can say with a high degree of certainty that it changes constantly. I mean, it's definitely seasonal. It's definitely regional, and it's going to be situation or, as your things change. But for my particular focus, I was looking at just your daily, how far are you going? What do you have with you? Why do you have that? I didn't get a lot of the why, and I didn't get into it specifically, but just to give everybody a little bit of perspective, I used to work maybe 30 minutes from the house. Now, if I'm going to go to work, it's 3.5 hours, right? So, and then my wife is traveling an hour and a half. So if anything happens, we've got a pretty significant amount of ground to cover. And what do you do? And what do you have with you, and what's prudent? And then there's a certain point where it gets to be cumbersome, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. Part of my issue has been most of my jobs are across the country. And when you travel like that, to be fair, and we say this every time, don't be a loot drop. Problem was, I knew I was a loot drop. I had friends, I had communities, I had people that I talked to randomly as traveling, and they're like, hey, if something goes bad, come to me. Partly because they knew I had some skills, partly because we would become friends, partly because I handed them seeds. I was like, here's a whole bunch of seeds for your little farm, whatever else. And it was stuff from Rare Seeds, interesting things. But they knew that I had intended to bring something to the table with them. And the reality is, though, I still carried stuff in my vehicle. I had a whole, I'm going to call it prepper box that I brought with me. And I also carried radios and rifles and stuff like that. And that wasn't because specifically prepping. I still brought stuff to have fun with and to go shoot and do some training on the side and things like that. And maybe teach somebody about radios. But the reality is, what can you carry? And then, God forbid it's an EMP and your car's stalled. How much are you going to be able to carry? And that's an even harder question to do. So the things that we're looking at on this kind of subject is, how much can I bring? Is my vehicle still operational? Which we're assuming it's not for whatever reason. It could be, hey, I've lived out of town. I went on a little weekend vacation. Fuel's out, and we don't have enough fuel to get home. Whatever else, like, was it? Oh, the East Coast shut down oil for a while because of a, what do they call it? The cyber attack where they basically hijacked the whole fuel distribution system for the East Coast for what
Well,
was
yeah,
a
they
week.
shut down a pipeline system and one of the fuel depots
Man, I
and
can't
stuff.
remember
Yeah,
what
so
that was. I was actually out towards the west working, so it never affected me. But
well, so here's the post that I put up on X. How far do you drive for work every day? What is your daily kit? And do you worry about having to walk home? And the four answers were: I work from home, less than 30 minutes, less than an hour, or greater than an hour. The way it came out, it was 62 votes. I didn't get a lot of response, but that's okay. 9 people said they work from home, 31 less than 30 minutes, 13 less than an hour, and 9 greater than an hour. So you can see there's quite a spread of what do you think you're going to need if you're only a 30-minute drive from home, which let's say that you're doing an average of let's just say 50 miles an hour. So you're only 25 miles from home. That's a long way to walk still, and it depends on the terrain too. I mean, urban environment might even be worse than a rural environment. And if you're greater than an hour, like I'm about 210 miles, it might be a little more than that. So if I wanted to walk home, bro, it's a week. It's a solid week. So, but then the other side of that is I'm traveling every week. I'm having to make sure I'm staying in a hotel. I'm making sure I bring clothes with me. I've gotten to the point where I've really got a bare bones kit, and some people might give me some grief for that because I might not have enough. But I've gotten to the point where I've got what I think I'm going to need, and I'm going to be able to get the little bit of stuff I don't have. Because for me, the two important things are going to be mobility, which is basically going to be my footwear, and the ability to get water. So I have one of those grails all the time. And we can go into specifics on the kit, but there's a bunch of answers on here. I mean, there's guys that have just small get home bags. There's a bag with 2 days of supplies. Guys talking about, I'm going to steal a bicycle, 77 miles from home. I'm worried. One guy's like, I have all this stuff that I bring. One dude put a whole thread out where he's like, I have this backpack and I have, 3 days worth of equipment. He basically has like almost a military infantryman's loadout with sleeping gear and walking gear and water ability and things like that. And so I was kind of trying to assess, because this stems from a ruck march I did. I just did a march with some guys in the area, and it was an initial assessment. February, it was 30 degrees, high winds, it was cold. And those conditions affect what you do as well. If you're going to be walking a lot, well, you don't want to be too heavily insulated because you're going to sweat. And then if you stop, you're going to freeze. But if you're not going to be walking a lot, you need to make sure that you can get layered in. So if you're going to get into, let's say you have to get into a hide site, or you're going to be in an operation or something where you're standing around for a long time, everything changes. This particular one, you can see that thread too if you wanted to look it up. We went through, it was a covert infiltration. So basically we were a group of hikers, and we wanted to just look like hikers. So all your kit had to go in your backpack. And one of the questions came up, well, what about military rucksacks? I got to tell you, you see them all the time. You see them amongst civilians and prior service guys. Those military rucksacks are very good. There's a reason why they get used, and nobody blinks an eye at them. So that didn't concern us at all for that particular exercise. And so when we got to the location, that was what we were in, basically what we would be in hiking gear. And then we had to do the hike, the first half, and then we did a training exercise on the range. And then afterwards, we had to walk out overtly, so we were wearing our gear, because at that point we had already unpacked it, and it was like, why pack it back up? Let's just walk out. And the nice thing about that is that type of land we were on, it was all lawful. And so it prompted this next question, like, okay, guy started giving me grief because I have too much stuff. Okay, well, what's too much stuff? So this went out to the community, and I think it came back pretty nicely, quite a spread. And it's gonna be dictating, or it's going to be dictated by your individual circumstances. So personally, I'm a mix of urban and suburban mostly. And so blending in isn't going to be an issue because where I am, I mean, if you're wearing a camouflage jacket, that looks normal. So,
Yeah, and I actually looked over this thread as well. One of the things that came to mind for me in the current area I'm in, which is not always stable, been out in rural areas. Utah is amazing. You could walk out there probably with a machine gun on your back right now. And short of a cop coming up and being like, hey, where did you get that? I want one too. Versus Salt Lake City, where they probably freak out and panic. There's a dichotomy there. Really, you see guys going all over the place with four wheelers, everything else, guns galore, but it's not a heavy populated area. Where I am right now is urbanized. I think your pack observation is totally correct. I also believe if you are wearing civilian clothes with military pack, nobody's gonna really be that looking at you that obviously. But the same style is if that guy has a military pack, he may have other things that I want too. And that
well, if you're in a non-permissive environment, I would say that would stand out more. But nowadays, I mean, right now, I wouldn't blink twice.
down here, there's not very much of the surplus stuff, and I think that might be a regional concern too. Arkansas, there was military packs all over the place. I've never. So to sidestep a little bit, I have a Russian military pack from years ago, and for Op 4 stuff, and I take that everywhere. I've not had anyone, not anyone with a Ukraine flag, not anyone ever, besides one military dude who asked me about it. And he happened to be Special Forces adjacent. He worked with them. And he knew what it was because they had had the Russians over for training years and years ago, and he just happened to know where it was. But other than that, I don't think it's a real big deal for most areas. And I agree with you. I think the other thing that we should be really fixated on, because as I was going through here and I still have it up, there's guys with, like you said, there's a smattering of stuff. Teddy, who was on last time, he said he brings this Solomon Force boots for this exact reason and keeps a few extra items in his Rush 72 work pack. It depends on your distance in the first place. And then on top of that, what else do you need? Water, possibly food. If you got a week's worth of walking, you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to go pick up food on the way back. Well, that's kind of hard. In the same respects, maybe it's a bigger issue just to have certain things in certain areas. Like, for instance, there's regions of the U.S. where it rains all the time. So you could get away with getting water pretty easily. Where, say, Arizona, how much water can you carry? And even the
not enough.
Yeah. Even the prepping communities, if you look on, I posted something on the American Partisan a while ago, and I took a link directly from the Mormons because they do a good job at prepping. And one of their caveats on their food preparation for a year said 14 gallons of water, and they said it is very prohibitive for people to maintain and care for enough water for a year. And I think that's the same thing here is, what can you carry? How can you carry? Grail's a great product. My only subjective issue with them specifically is they should be your get home bag kind of device because they only do 66 gallons, but they will take, I think they've got a setting or a filter for heavy metals, chemicals possibly, or maybe it's just chemicals, and they do really good. That said, if you're going to have that, and that, I think I spec'd it out, like that's a month worth of water for most people. But it's also your environment, how much temperature is, everything else like that as well.
Well, so I'll talk about water, and then I'll get into my specific situation after that. And the one thing I was going to mention was water can be an issue depending on where you are. And even in the north, in the wintertime, like I think about this last week, right? It was freezing, but there was no snow on the ground. And so that means that any open water is frozen. So what are you going to do? Is the ice thin enough that you can crack through it and get to the water, or are you chipping ice and trying to hope it melts? Like, so there's a chance that even up here in the north and maybe in the mid-south, depending on the time of year, that your water sources are frozen if you can't get to running water inside of a building or at a well or something like that. So it's definitely a point of concern. And oftentimes, bottled water, for whatever reason, doesn't always freeze as soon. So if you can I keep some bottles of water in my vehicle as well. That way, if the grail's empty, which it usually is, I can pour them in there or, throw them in the bag. So carrying water is usually a big chunk of your weight. And so where I'm at is I have 2 different vehicles that I can potentially drive. I'm staying in a hotel, so that means my vehicle is outside of a place where it's safe. It's not locked inside like it is normally here, so I could just, if I wanted to keep my kit in the vehicle. And so I've had to take serious consideration because I'm proximate to Milwaukee, and I was the man on the ground in Kenosha the fucking night before that started. Excuse my language, but within a few days of that starting down there, I was like, this is going to pop. And so my proximity to all that has changed my security stance on my vehicle. And so I've really pared down what I take with me. I used to take a whole box. I used to have all kinds of stuff. Well, if I'm not training with it, so when I did this training, it was 57-pound pack. That was my kit. I don't take that with me every week. So if you're not training with that stuff, I'm not taking it with me. I've come to that conclusion. I generally take one rifle, the AR-15 style. My EDC, which I'm not going to go over here, but it's the stuff that just basically fits on my person. And then I have a small backpack, actually even a Burley stock, one of the new Fade backpacks that has the Velcro all on the inside. And inside that, I have an extra compass, my maps, my Grail. I have Ear Pro, extra pair of gloves, extra mags for my rifle and my pistol because I usually carry Glock 47 also, which is basically Glock 17 size, a radio, extra batteries. I can't remember what little miscellaneous stuff that can help me get home. I don't keep a lot of food on me because I usually have food in the vehicle. So if I can get to the vehicle, I can get to the food, and then I can decide at that point what goes where. And then after that, in my every week duffel bag, it's basically like a soft suitcase it's got a suit space in the bottom. That's where the rifle goes. So now I'm concealed. I'm not actually showing that I have a rifle case going in and out of the hotel room. And in the top pouch is my clothes for the couple days I'm going to be where I'm at, and then my belt. And on the belt is 2 spare pistol mags, 1 spare rifle mag, a dump pouch, my med kit, which has got the pouch on the back that has the IFAK. It's got batteries. It's got a tourniquet. Then I'm trying to remember what's on the other side. Yeah, I've got a admin pouch, which has my compass and my another notebook, because, that way I don't have to have stuff on my chest. I can keep that map pouch and have the notebook out in case I need to write down where I'm at, trying to figure out where I'm going if I'm having to move covertly. And then my pistol holster to carry it outside the waistband. So it's not overloaded. There's not that actually much on it, but it's the minimum that I need. And I'm just going to put on my jacket, the stuff in my pockets, my backpack, and my belt. And then every day I wear a loop side belt as my main belt. So I work in a gun shop, so it's not a big deal what I wear. And then all I have to do is take my battle belt out of my bag, loop it around my waist, clip it, cinch up the holster strap on my leg, and I'm done. That's it. Put my backpack on and I'm gone. So it takes me 2 minutes to get ready. If I have to convert my pistol, a couple extra minutes, but usually I just pull it out of my backpack and jam it in the holster on my leg. If I want to still stay concealed with the other pistol, then I can keep that under that belt. So it's a pretty good setup for me, and it's not too much because I've battled with this. Do I take a whole huge pack? And I just think the answer is no, because there's a better than zero chance that I'm going to at least be able to move part way in my vehicle. And if something bad's happening, I'm probably going to put my belt on and keep my backpack really close with my rifle. So that way, if I do have to ditch the vehicle, I've probably made it. I mean, even just 10 miles is a huge deal because that puts me on the other side of the first town that I have to drive through from where I work. That gets me away from Milwaukee. That gets me away from some of the other areas in that zone and out into the country where I do have some contacts if I needed to. I got a guy that's actually where I did a class with brush feeder a long time ago that I could stop over at and then make my way, continue make my way north.
Yeah, it definitely, what you're talking about and how you're discussing your concepts, I think really fit into a good go bag setup for yourself, especially the environment you're in. Just going over some of these guys. Let's see here. I'm gonna pull one of them out of here. There's a Jerry Rigger of Life. Worry less overall now than I did when I put together my Get Home bag. I live a little closer to work now, but I'm split working between home, girlfriends, and actual work, both jobs in the same area. Get Home bag set up at this time was set for 35 miles a foot maximum, likely overnight along the way depending on travel level, ability to move for your girlfriend. Need to go through it again, but Get Home bag, EDC pistol, split chest rig, and assault pack rifle would certainly combine some things as needed if I were on foot. And I think it's a really cool concept. I don't know if I would be going into. Let me caveat this: Windigo Works makes one of the best split rigs out there that you can trick out. I sometimes think that we over prepare in certain ways and we under prepare in other ways. And I think some of this also comes from the fact, like, you just did a course, which I really like that you did a course with, like, hey, put everything in your backpack, go out there, do your shooty shoot, and come on back. And people were giving you crap about your bag weight, but even Chris Weatherman in his book said his pack was 65 pounds. We've discussed on this podcast, I put it on American Partisan, you hit 45 pounds and you start having diminishing capabilities.
Now,
That said, I will caveat, if it is a survival get home bag, extra weight just means you're going to slow down on your march. If you think you're going to get into a conflict, you will have to decide whether you want to drop stuff. And here's another reason why I like the idea of adding extra stuff to your kit for this kind of situation, because just like the Appalachian Trail, almost every Appalachian Trail hiker that starts out for the first time packs too much stuff. And if you go to the first waypoint, there is a drop box where they drop stuff they don't need and other people can take or whatever it is. And they dump a ton of crap. There's no reason you can't have more. Now, if you have a tuned bag like you do, no big deal. Write your checklist down, write what you have in your bag, maybe even write down next to it why you have it, so you just have it in your mind, and check that list from time to time, making sure everything is there. Like you said, a compass. I tend to keep 2 compasses on my gear. I have one on me, which is always a military lensatic compass that has the tritium in it, and I might carry one other in my pack, a nice, really small silver or something like that.
I have the exact same thing. I have a lensatic one just like that on my belt.
Yep.
Which I actually get tied to my pants or my inner belt.
Yep.
And then I have a spare one in my backpack. So, but that guy said something really important. He said, obviously I have to go through it again.
Yeah.
So you see, it's a constant
An evolution.
process of, yes, you're always revising or redoing it to check stuff. So here's another guy, Pot County Partisan says, I worry every day. I work 40 miles from home. I have friendly stops 12, 20, and 30 miles from work. Daily kit's a long list. I pack, but a separate post would be needed for that. I keep a rifle, an EDC, tourniquet, flashlight, Benchmade. Yeah, I mean, I have that stuff on me too. I keep a pack specifically for medical and a sling bag, but I wouldn't grab those if I was walking. I have enough food for a week. Water's plentiful here. See, I went over that. Keep a tote of long-term camping gear. So he's got another set of stuff in his vehicle, hoping, again, like I said, we're going to be able to stay with our vehicle for a little bit longer or as long as possible. I have supplies stashed at friendly stops. they're like-minded, so I'm relying heavily on those safe havens. So that's really important. He's got a pace plan basically already built into this. Like it might not be written out PACE, but he's got a pace plan built into this.
Oh,
What
absolutely.
he's done,
Yeah, I'm
right?
looking at it
And
right
then
now, and it's
yeah,
a phenomenal thought through. And I bet you money this guy also did an area study of his transit. And a lot of people don't do
mhm,
that.
mhm.
And some of us don't have an opportunity to do that. I've done it over and over for certain areas. If I knew I was going to stay there for a long time, maybe it was from work to where I was staying. But a
I
hotel
gotta tell
should
you,
have
the
luck for me.
hard part with some of this, depending on where you are, like where I'm at, I got several rivers I have to cross.
Yeah.
So if the main route is not available, guess what?
You're taking
I've got
swim.
to detour a long way to get across a river without having to swim it. And it's not a good thought. You know, there was just like if I was going to go from my home location to my first choice, not home location, basically my bug out location,
Mhm.
to go across the other river is a 5-mile detour in one direction. It's 5 miles, and if we had to walk that, oh
Yeah,
boy,
now
I'll tell
you're
you what,
10 miles.
it's over hills
And
and stuff like that.
and that's not even for you for work. Just think you've got family members and stuff like that. That makes things even harder. One of the things that I do love about a lot of these apocalypse books, there's always somebody on the road traveling.
Mhm.
And I don't want to give them shade because it's a good book. The one that created Homestead, Black Autumn. One of the characters in there was traveling across the country and he picked up people, which is something interesting that goes on. And Chris Weatherman in his book, he started out, he met Jamie, who ended up shooting him in the head, where he met Sarge and all these other people. And Thad was a main character, but all these people had some kind of packs and provisions to travel along with. And Morgan in the book ended up meeting people who didn't have crap. And they were always asking for stuff from him because he had a pack. So that's something to look for. Now, what he did was he'd always provide water because he had the filtration capability for his systems too, which I think is a very good thing. We don't think too much about this, but as you're traveling, those random strangers who might have been quote unquote the good Christian 3 days ago are dehydrated and starving. That's terrifying for them. Now they're all going to bunch up on points of bottlenecks, points of interest, etc. Whether it be a city, maybe going through a city, maybe the city's locked down and they don't want anyone in or out of the area. They're keeping all their
Right.
people in, and now you have to
Dolio
bypass
talks
them.
about that.
Yeah, and I mean
Dolio
everybody
talks
does it.
about that with his community study stuff
Yeah,
or his community security courses. You know what? One of the things about that Grail that I like is, and I'm not pimping for them. I don't get anything from them. I just have one. And one of my friends took one to the Boundary Waters on a fishing trip, and he's like, "It's awesome. In 60 seconds or less, we've got water to drink and to cook with, and all that stuff." And so it's mostly for drinking and hygiene, so hydration and hygiene, and that's why I carry it, and it just fits in the bag. And if you want to clip it on the outside, you
it's
can.
the size of an Algene
Um,
bottle, which means most
Yeah.
packs fit that, which is another good thing. I carry an MSR Guardian, which is
Yep.
antivirus, all that other stuff. The only reason I carry that one is because most of the time I'm in the southeast area. There's quite a bit of water around, and I have an Algene bottle with one of those metal canteen cups, which I can still boil the water if I don't have the filter doesn't work and everything else like that. I looked at the Grail, and the Grail has one I want to say has a steel outer shell or cup system that I
The one
really
I have
thought
is
about that.
plastic.
Yeah, I don't think there's a big deal either way. You can
Well,
always
yeah,
find
you just
something to
can't heat it up,
Yeah.
but you don't need. That's not what it's
No,
for.
the
That's
Grail's
not the
already
intent,
good.
So
If the Grail fails, sure, but it shouldn't on that. And I think it's a good product. So there's many ways to skin that cat on. I shouldn't have said that, but hey,
poor kitties.
yeah,
You know, and one of the things too is if I'm having to walk home, man, I'm not looking for trouble.
no,
I'm
nobody is.
I'm avoiding it as much as possible, so I'm not carrying heavy amount of ammunition. I mean, I've got a few mags for each.
Yep.
and any spare mags that are not already on the belt or in the pack are going in the pack that are, ancillary in some of my other equipment. So I'm not
I'm
trying to be overt with this anyway.
well. I'm gonna
And
hurt.
and
I'm gonna hurt a couple of our
go ahead.
friends' problems or feelings.
Feelings?
Yeah. So be prepared is one of them, and I think NC Sheepdog is another guy that we know, and both of them love them 308s big time, big time. And one was talking about getting a foul recently, and he's like, I didn't do this, but I really want to. And there's nothing wrong with a foul or a 308, and we really do need to do a whole discussion on those things because there's so many options. But the reality of it is, when you are going home, you want to carry as least amount of weight as possible. And those 308 rounds, no matter how good of a punch they are, carry more weight. And everything
Well, and there's
carries
something to
more
be
weight.
said for like a pistol,
Yeah.
AR pistol, a 10.5 inch with a folding stock, or 300 black, or whatever your spice of the month is,
Yeah.
whatever you're into, something small like that, because you can just throw it down under your arm. You could put it back in the bag if you needed to be covert. I mean, I'm not particularly doing that because at the point that I've got to have my rifle out, we've got problems already. Right. And so let's talk about something else here.
Yeah.
What's your take on taking NVGs with you? Because I have not committed to this, and I don't think that I ever will.
So that is something I would say that I would get, and this is, I would tell you to take. And I think, again, I'm going to bring up Chris Weatherman, the guy's great prepper. He knows his stuff. When will people, and we're talking normal people, we're not talking about partisans, we're not talking about anything else. Let's say this is a big disaster, economic collapse, big,
Whatever.
yeah, whatever. But
sweet meteor of death, something like that.
just take me out. I don't want to walk these miles. I know I'm not ready for it. Traveling at night, no matter what, is going to be safer for almost everyone in general. And I think the night vision magnifies your capability of moving safely. And that's something, but here's the convex of this whole problem is, then do I bring a helmet? Do I stick it on? How long can I wear the helmet? And there's a basic issue with that. Now, to me, having traveled at night a lot back in the day, you don't always need nods to see stuff. What you need the nods for is to verify stuff. So you might see something, or there's a hint of light, or you hear something, you turn your nods on, or even thermals, and you look that direction and see if you can see anything. So it might be something that frankly, I carried my nods all across the country. They went with me, and every time I went into a hotel, they were the first things in. I'm not saying hotels are safe. You can get those broken into. But everywhere I went to, the only thing I left in my vehicle was possibly my food stores, because most people who break into cars are not going to take out freeze-dried food and run away with it out of a box. Some clothing items, maybe some other things like that. And then the weapons and anything that is a big thief thing or easily carried away with, I'd take into the hotels most times.
Right. And so what that comes back to for me is what makes sense for me to leave in my vehicle and risk at that point and not be overloaded. And I've slimmed it down. And yeah, I think a lot of guys are probably going to say, you don't have what you need and you should really have more food, night vision, blah, blah, blah. I've opted to not, because
well, you have the calories to burn too. So, and you're working on it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
a couple days without a good meal. You do need food. You do need.
I only eat once a day right now. I eat once a day. I actually found that if I eat more than once a day, I actually get ill.
Yeah.
I can't eat lunch or breakfast any longer.
Oh,
I can only eat at night. It's been a struggle with that, but I've gone back and forth, and I only have one set, man. And so financially to replace that is not possible.
Yeah.
And so I've opted to risk I look at it like this. I'm trying to take a gauge of the weather report.
Yeah.
Okay. If the weather is going to be bad, I'm not leaving. And so I'm looking at the situation with my travel schedule for work as well. If the weather's going to be fine, I'm looking at the political, social report as well, or the weather, you could say, and trying to decide, okay, do I adjust my travel day? Because let's say, well, on this one, when I went to SHOT Show, I didn't have a choice. It was inauguration. Well, a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, something's going to happen." Well, yeah, some of us thought that stuff's going to happen. It's been hard to get off of that horse. Like, are they going to pull the rug out from under us?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of one of those. Okay, I'm looking at the political situation, the social situation. Where am I going? Where am I going near? Is it going to make sense for me to leave that stuff at home, or hey, I really actually have to go? I think this time I'll take that stuff with me.
If
And
you make it home,
luckily,
what's
well,
more important? Is the night vision at home to defend your family more important to your family's security than it is for you to have it to get home too?
well, and I think you fall into that complacency set, and I know
Yeah.
I
Oh,
have
yeah.
in that regard, because it's like, well, I've been doing this now for years.
Yep.
I'm kind of complacent. I have a few different routes I can take. I have very specific places I stop on purpose for fuel and, food and whatever I need. So it's kind of become a complacency thing where, you know what, I don't need it. And if I did, yeah, I would regret not having it for sure.
I'm going to say
Right
something.
now, well, I'll just finish this thought. I keep telling people right now, we can go to the store and get more.
Yeah.
Next month,
Yeah,
who
right.
knows? But everything looks good right now. But right now, we can still go get more. So, what were you going to say?
One of my thoughts also, and this, so we were prepping for a different conversation that didn't happen because one of the other people wanted to be here, couldn't be, which is fine. I was at a gun show. Anybody who saw my UN stamp on my hand, which I thought was hilarious. The one thing that I will say that I know specifically, if Scout was here, we'd have to have a conversation about it, and he'd say, "Don't get it." And I think don't get it for your first night vision item is the digital night vision that's coming out now is $400 to $600. And yes, that's still a market increase in finances. But in your situation, maybe for people who are packing around, maybe for $800, I could have picked up a digital night vision thermal zoom capable day package that would have worked okay. Now, just like Scout would say, that's not what you want. And they're crap. Now, I've been talking to some of the people in South Africa and stuff like that. They can't get a hold of our night vision, mostly for the cost. And some people, there's just no way in hell you're going to get good product. You don't have that kind of money, but you're still prepping. That might be something I'd be like, hey, maybe go buy the digital night vision. It's not the best. You're not going to be able to walk around with it and do the stuff and be sneaky cool. And it's not something, but it may be an option for say your situation. Hey, let me leave the good stuff at home. Maybe I'll pick up this low cost unit. I'll still be able to see
Yep.
somebody's
I agree with that.
lights out there, or God forbid the cell phones are still capable of operating and you see the little IR flashes off of them while you're looking around. That might be a better option too.
I'll say that it's definitely a Gear Fear thing. And coming from as a DayZ player, which somebody may understand, there's definitely some Gear Fear to it, because it's like, well, what's the price to replace is too high to risk when things are okay. When we were going into the election, it was definitely one of those like, well, I'd rather have the enablers. And if I had another set, so if I had a second set, whether it was a good set or a cheap set, doesn't matter, then I would definitely have a set with me. Unfortunately, it's not worth the risk to try to replace at this point. And so I will probably risk more daytime movement
Yeah.
or night blindness, I guess you could say, than right now, than risk it financially. And that may be a stupid thing, and I might get some flack for that, but yeah, it's got to be personal, I guess. And if you think that you want to take your night vision with you every single week, this isn't just like a one-off trip. Like when I went to Texas, that stuff was definitely with me. but every single week, the same route every week, the same situation every week, things are pretty good. That complacency set falls in, and you just kind of go, hey, you know what? It's one more bag of shit I got to carry,
Yep.
or now I have to get a bigger bag to carry more crap. It's just one of those things where I just haven't felt like it's been worth it right at this point. And, hopefully I don't have to. Hopefully I can just buy the fun stuff and have fun and LARP
I hope to God that's the
not
only
be a
thing.
loot drop.
Dude, I've been watching, and this has been a secret, guilty fascination of me, and I probably need to get off the internet and go touch more grass. But I'm watching the leftists absolutely go insane, and they rightfully are scared because they're getting crap information. Trump has stolen nuclear secrets, blah blah blah, and it is riling them up. And if if they were being realistically and true and honest, I would be concerned about them too. That said,
Well, it
that causes
definitely
that.
has the potential to become a conflagration. I
Oh,
mean,
it's great. Yeah,
if you look at if they still have the funding, which I think in a lot of cases they do,
they will always
they
have
can
funding.
definitely
They will always have
they can
funding.
definitely do something very violent and negative. And it's been a concern. That's why we keep saying don't stop training. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 of us just in my feed that I see that we're constantly harping like, hey, go
Everybody
train,
is.
go train.
The only people
Yeah.
that aren't, literally once the election happened, got off of these communities and went and hid and said, I don't care anymore. I want to pull
Yeah.
up another guy that you had on your thing. John Clay. He said, 30-minute drive
yeah.
for me. I don't worry because I have a bag in the truck. I call it a go bag, but any acronym will work. It has 2 days of supplies plus basic shelter, clothing, medical, and security. I've used it to travel to hundreds of miles a day. The bag was not significantly larger. So I don't know what he means by that. Maybe I just misread it, but
No, what he's saying there is he has a bag and he used to travel further, and
hundreds
that
of miles.
bag wasn't much bigger than what he's got now. So,
but your basic core stuff is always going to be food or shelter, water, something to create fire if you can, all the basic stuff. I like that he's got some medical supplies. And the question really becomes then, like, maybe you extra pack a little bit of medical supplies in your vehicle that you can throw in your go bag. But if everything's gone to hell, maybe you don't want to carry that or whatever else. I think sometimes we try to put everything in one bag. And yes, if you're walking, you need to rock that stuff out. But that's not always necessary. And you may have alternative ways of moving. One of the things I did, and I did this for personal reasons, in my head, I was like, oh, this is a prepping thing. I'll ride a bike home. I'm not going to. I was never going to ride a bike all the way back home. But I had a folding mountain bike from Montague that the military carried. I had one when I was over in Afghanistan. Absolutely loved it. It's a mountain bike. And I love riding my mountain bike and not being a fat bastard. But I knew at that time I could pack a lot of stuff on that bike and go down the road. And again, right now, I'm in the South, in Florida. It is hobo season. Everybody from north who could migrate comes down here. And I literally saw today, riding down the road, as I'm driving down, there's a guy walking with a decent-sized dog sitting on a giant pack that was sitting on top of a bike. And he's struggling a little bit, older dude. And to be fair, I hope the military guys come out and check on this dude because he looked military. You can tell the walk in the gait and stuff like that. But you never know. And there are some really good communities down here that come out and find these guys like, oh, you're prior military. Let's help you out. Let's find you a place. Let's get you food. Let's get you rehab and all that other stuff. But you can find alternative ways to carry more stuff. Now, I'm not saying pack your car full of stuff and become a loot drop. You will. I was a loot drop. I still am I'm a food loot drop for the most part every day for work. But I always carry something with me to get water or to actually cook, boil some water with. I love my Kelty or my Kelly kettle. It is phenomenally good product. And even down here, I could take dried grass clippings and boil some water. It's going to be a pain in the butt, but there's always little sticks and twigs and little pieces of wood. Or I could just use paper and burn to actually boil some water there. But anyways, back to this
Yeah,
guy.
you got to build one of those. You got to build one of the urban gillies, is what you got to do.
You mean
One
the
that's
trash
made out
pile?
of trash.
All
Yeah,
I
the
need to
trash
do is
pile
go
gilly.
find a hobo
Seen a
pile,
couple of
roll
those.
around in
Yeah,
it
there you
for
go.
5 minutes. I'll stink to high heaven
Yeah.
and no one will care. And just,
Watch the airsoft guy take out a whole squad with one of those setups.
yeah.
Anyway, now that I'm thinking about it here, I would say that, based on what I've done is I've looked at the security risk as the higher thing that I need to consider, and that's why I've pared down what I have so
Yeah.
much to where I can basically pick up the items I need and take them in the hotel room, and then if somebody breaks into my vehicle, they're not going to get any of that stuff because it's in the room with me, and then it goes back in the vehicle. So mobility is my security in that regard, and then the location that I park during the day is really secure. So that being said, if the situation changed, I would definitely upgrade the kit. And yeah, I would probably be a loot drop at that point because I would be pretty heavy loaded if I was like, oh, well, there's a high likelihood that I don't make it home. It's one of those things where do I even leave? And I've had that conversation with my bosses before.
If your boss is
actually.
cool with it, that's great.
So
And the
But-
reality of stuff is we probably won't have an EMP, knock on wood, because that would be god awful. But even if we have social destruction going on with political parties and just the social color revolution style stuff, most of your stuff is still operational. It doesn't mean you're going to have fuel all the time or food all the time or this or that. And to be honest with you, that's where your protection kind of becomes more important. I want to read
Yep.
Southern Unit Aerial LLC, who posted on yours. And
I don't see it.
I don't think he's
him,
wrong.
yeah.
This is funny. He's like, I got gun 1, 7-inch AR with folder and backpack with 2 40 rounds, 60 P mags, and coupled 40s. Okay. So he's got a couple mags that are 240 rounds. Sorry, I thought that was 240. 240 rounds. That's a lot of ammo. That's a full-on combat fighting run. Gun 2 is a full-size 9mm. Gun 3 is a compact 9mm. Gun 4 is a pocket 380. He's got plate carrier with level 3 plus ceramics, which is fine. A lot of people are going to scream, you want 4, blah, blah, blah. And sure, if you have the money. He has an IFAK. I have 6 tourneys, which I don't think anyone in the medical field will tell you you don't have enough tourniquets at all. Maybe 6 is a little on the high end because you can't put them around your neck and get shot twice in the leg, just move it up. And enough combat gauze to choke a horse, plus skills to use it, which, to be fair, that's what you really need. He also has radio and comms. And he doesn't say how far away he is. But he also said, I need a folding bike. Walking sucks. Which
Yeah, I see that.
madly appreciate.
Yeah, well, and
This might be his
That's
truck
that
rifle, his gear,
This
and
guy
other
is-
stuff too.
he's the walking meme. Like, how many guns do you have?
Yeah.
3. Well, that's not enough. Oh, you mean at home? No, that's how many I have on me right now. It's like, yeah, that's my life too. But so yeah, I don't know, man. I think we've kind of gone over the majority of this. Is there any specific anything else? Like it doesn't look like most of the community is decently prepared. There's one guy, Sets Nats. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. He says 10 miles via roads. I'd steal a bike for the first half if I could. Only the last 3 miles or so is more urban. The goal would be to move at night via NVGs, stopping every few hundred yards to do thermal scan, rifle, chest rig, water, snacks, and a radio. So this guy's really close, and that's not a bad setup to
Yeah.
get home. I think 10 miles via roads. I mean,
It's a sucky
That's
long
a
day walk.
yeah, that's a day walk.
And if you get caught in the right situation, God forbid, he says he's going to an urban area, which would suck having an EMP. But let's say for some reason nobody's vehicles worked, whatever else. The 10-mile walk the first day probably wouldn't be god awful. It's the few days afterwards. And I want to bring up one other guy, and for a reason, Wisco 2-2. Wisco 2 for you military
That's
guys.
the guy we did the hike with last
Okay.
weekend.
So he said he's 77.3 miles from home. So I'm assuming he's not only checked his mileage, he's probably done an area study. Yes, I'm very concerned with walking home. Concerned whom I work for and then I work in Cook CO, which is county.
Cook County.
Yeah.
That's Illinois.
Yeah.
That's Chicago. That's
In
Chicago.
part, it's a majority of the reason I started the Ruck Group. So this guy's
Well, I got good news for him. I'll talk to him offline, but yeah, he's on it, man.
So this is something where you're 70 so many miles away. After you get past a day or two, shelter becomes important. And I'm not saying you don't need shelter now. I used to run a Hennessy hammock and I had a rain fly. But things simple as carrying some polycryo and some of maybe even 2 of those blankets, the Mylar blankets that are reflective, can create a pretty damn good shelter with a small fire and keep you warm in the winter too. And that's something you'll have to be more concerned about than a lot of people.
I usually have a large fold up emergency blanket. It's not one of those little emergency in the little tiny packs.
No, you want the big one. Yeah.
And I have my 5-star Alts poncho,
Yep.
which is basically a USGI wool blanket made into a poncho.
Yep.
And so I'm going to do pretty well with that. And then I have rain gear also. So I'm going to try to stay as dry as I can, aside from sweating like a pig.
Shelter seems to be an important thing that we haven't talked
shelters
about.
definitely.
But it's there. It is.
Oh,
Yep.
The maps. So nobody, I don't think anybody in here has mentioned maps, right? And this is a big deal. And one of Lieutenant Colonel Murray's guys, I can't remember, Trooper, I think is who it was. He talked about this, and maps are a big deal. And here's the reason why is something I mentioned earlier. I've got a pretty long jaunt if I want to go to a different bridge. And if you're trying to travel at night, even if the terrain's familiar, it looks totally different, and you're not nearly going as far as you think you are. And the terrain on the maps, even on really good maps, doesn't translate to what's under your feet.
Nope.
So having your maps is going to be super important. I keep one of those gazetteers with me always. And then I've got CalTopo. I don't know if there's any other good ones out there that anybody would recommend, but CalTopo's worked out really well for me because I can change the size of the zoom, and you can lay over the satellite imagery, the latest satellite imagery from the Google, and you can change the topo lines as well. You can change the distances. You can make them 10. You can make them mixed, so you can see kind of what kind of inclines you're going to be climbing up and down. And if you've got to make a detour and you don't have maps, and a compass too, but there's a good chance you're going to get lost. Now, I know the routes pretty well, and I could very easily, because the terrain that I have, I can see all the surrounding hilltops. I'd very easily be able to place myself. That's also how my brain works.
Yep.
I'm very spatially oriented. So I would be okay, but I still want those maps. And I at least want, look, let's put it this way. I got turned around on a back road one time. The main road was closed. I had to make a little detour. I got turned around on this back road. I thought I was where I was, and I was one full grid off. It happens. And I was looking right at the road sign, and I'm like, oh, I'm here. And I wasn't.
You may have that barrier. You may have that bridge you need to cross, but you can't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the maps come into play. Every state I go to, if you travel in and out of your state, go to the rest stop. Go pick up the free maps. They're not the best, but now you have state maps. And maybe grab a couple for your community or whatever else. Like, hey, I'm going to put one in each car. I love the big topo maps that you can buy. And it's got the map of your state. And sometimes you can get one for just the state. Like, buy one just for the state. And then you have a whole bunch of maps of your state, too. And that helps a lot. Like you said, maps aren't the end-all, be-all. There's always stuff you're going to miss. There's trails you'll see and everything else like that. But if you've got a compass, you've got a map, you generally can figure out where you are, even if you practice that actual technique and actually done it before. If you don't,
you should really get a gazetteer for your state and for any states that you're traveling in if you can, because they have all the roads. Unless they've been updated recently. I mean, they've got everything, all the back roads. They don't necessarily have all the structures and stuff, but that's where CalTopo comes in. It'll throw the structures on top for you. So,
all right, well, we're coming up on an hour, and I know you got stuff to do.
All I got.
So I think we'll probably hit this subject again.
Don't be a loot drop.
Yep. Keep your shovel sharp.
Keep your shovel sharp.
You guys have a good time.